Hey guys, before this video begins, I have to let you know that the first 5 minutes were filmed before the election on November 3rd, 2024. I originally planned for this whole video to come out before the election, but I didn't have enough time to finish it. And that's why about 5 minutes into the video, you'll see a time jump, and you'll know it's a time jump because my hair gets shorter. But yeah, I feel like it's still important for me to finish this video and get it out to you guys because this is still important information to analyze, and I still think it's a fun video. Enjoy! This is part 2 of my breakdown and analysis of Donald Trump versus Kamala Harris as a regular American. So part 1 was my breakdown and analysis of Donald Trump, and part 2 will be my breakdown and analysis of Kamala Harris. I've always been critical of Kamala Harris, especially ever since she jumped into the national spotlight in 2019 when she first ran for president in the Democratic primary. I just try to keep it real, and the media I was consuming led me to believe that there were things she has done that genuinely deserve criticism. There are TikToks of me in 2020 ranting against her when Biden picked her and ranting about how it's okay to criticize the Democratic nominee in a general election when you're a Democrat or a liberal or a progressive or a person on the left. And I don't feel like watching those because the way I communicated the message was inauthentic. However, if I did watch them, I think I would still agree with most of the things I said. I mostly talked about her record on criminal justice, notably the things Tulsi Gabbard went after her for in the debate. However, ever since she replaced Biden this year, I've been pleasantly surprised by a lot of the policies she's put out and by the vice president she's picked. So in this video, I'm going to list things I like about Kamala Harris and then things I don't like about Kamala Harris. Things I like about Kamala Harris. That's old school. Perhaps the thing I like most about her is her picking of Tim Walz as VP, which is funny because that means the thing I like most about Kamala Harris is the person who's not her. I didn't even know who Tim Walz was before Kamala picked him. But I don't know, when I looked into him and all of his policies and his record, I really liked what I saw. I loved what I saw. Here, I'll read his record. With a 1-seat majority in Minnesota, he did universal free school meals, legal marijuana, carbon-free electricity by 2040, tax rebates for the working class up to $1,300 for those making under $150K per year, 12 weeks paid family leave, 12 weeks paid sick leave, banned conversion therapy, red flag laws for guns, universal background checks for guns, automatic voter registration, free public college under 80K, ban on forever chemicals, $2.2 billion increase in K-12 school funding, and sectoral bargaining for nursing home workers. So, I mean, all pretty good stuff. One of the best things about Kamala picking Tim Walz that I don't see a lot of people talking about, and maybe a lot of people don't know about this, but if Kamala Harris becomes the president and Tim Walz becomes vice president, that sets up Tim Walz to be the next Democratic nominee. Because of name recognition, he automatically gets bumped to the front of the line. He automatically will be polled the highest, probably, like, because people know him. He gets to the top of people's minds. That's what happened with Joe Biden, and that's why he pretty much had it easy in 2020, and it was like an uphill battle for Bernie and everyone else, but Joe Biden just by default was at the top of the polls because he was vice president. And so if we elect Kamala right now, then after 8 years of Kamala, Tim Walz is next in line, and he's progressive, and I would love to have him as president. Right now, I would prefer the presidential ticket be swapped and be Walz-Harris, but maybe we gotta wait 8 years for that. But I know it seems like a long time, but politics moves at glacial speed, I'm learning, and it does look like we'd be on the right track if Kamala gets elected. And even then, think about his primary challengers in 8 years. Hopefully he'll have more progressive primary challengers. And so we're slowly moving the Overton window. This is how it happens. Also, with Tim Walz being at such a high position, being the second most powerful person in the country, that normalizes progressive policies. If he keeps speaking about these progressive policies, then it'll become more normalized in people's heads, and then therefore more accepted, and then we will be on the path to progress. Okay, going into Kamala Harris's policies, these are just things I read off of her website, and I picked out the things that I liked. So there's probably more, but these are just some of them. Canceling medical debt, the first ever federal ban on price gouging, namely for food and groceries. Do you guys say groceries or groceries? Anyways, significantly expand affordable rental supply by more than 1.2 million new affordable homes, thereby reducing rental prices. Vice President Harris is proposing the first ever tax cut specifically targeted at encouraging home builders to build affordable homes for first-time home buyers. This one's really cool. Vice President Harris will continue working to facilitate mass transit-oriented development and energy-efficient homes to lower costs. Lowering home costs by taking on abusive corporate landlords. And so basically, she's gonna tackle the affordable housing crisis from two angles, from increasing the supply of homes and by taking on the corporate landlords. And I don't know, I guess I'm not that qualified to talk on all the details of this, but you can read it on her website. And I mean, the concept of it seems good. Okay, this next one is expanding home. All right, guys, I'm back. It is November 17th, 2024. It's after the election already. As you can see, time has passed. I got a haircut. Wearing my San Diego Chargers sweatshirt because there's just a Chargers game right now. They won against the Bengals, but I'm gonna finish this video because I still think it's important to analyze these policies. And I'm gonna just talk in past tense when I need to because I want to keep it authentic. You know, I have to be honest. Expanding home ownership with historic $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers. And I saw someone say that this contradicts her plan to increase the supply of housing, and that's because it's like by increasing the supply of housing, you are decreasing the price of housing, but then by giving people assistance in buying housing, $25,000 assistance in down payment, you are decreasing the supply of housing once again and increasing the price of housing, right? So it's like you're kind of like contradicting yourself. And Kamala does kind of contradict herself because she says, I want everyone to be able to buy a house, but also I want to recognize that housing is a way to build wealth. And I'm thinking about it and I'm like, I don't think you can have it both ways, because the only way for housing to build wealth is if you limit people from having it. You know what I mean? Like if everyone had access to housing, if housing was affordable for everyone, then everyone's home prices would go down. And that's why you have people not wanting to build housing in their neighborhoods, not wanting to build affordable housing in their neighborhoods. And so you have to pick one. Is housing a commodity or is it not? And I'd rather be on the side of it should not be a commodity. Everyone should have access to affordable housing. And I think the baseline things needed for survival should be taken off the table. They should be provided for by the government, by our tax money, like housing, healthcare, food, education, things like that. I saw this on her website and I was like, why isn't she talking about this more? Vice President Harris and Governor Walz are committed to ending unnecessary degree requirements so that good-paying jobs are available to all Americans, not just those with college degrees. They will support all viable, high-quality paths to good jobs, such as registered apprenticeships, joint labor management programs, innovative partnerships between school districts and industries, and career and technical education programs. As president, she will get rid of unnecessary degree requirements for hundreds of thousands of federal jobs and will change the private sector and state and local governments to take similar action. And will challenge the private sector and state and local governments to take similar action. This would help me a lot because I need to get a job, but it would also help men in general, like apprenticeships, technical jobs. And I wish Kamala Harris and just Democrats in general would flex it, you know what I mean? Just say, look how much we're helping men. We're doing this, and this policy for men. And they don't do that because I think a lot of Democrats are afraid of being seen as anti-woman. They think being pro-man means you're anti-woman, and it's like, no, of course not. That's not true. Like, being pro-woman doesn't mean you're anti-man. And I mean, look what happened in the election. Trump won over men because Democrats aren't showing how they're for men. They're not showing how they helped men. They're not showing how they will help men. And it's just a messaging problem. It's not really even that much of a policy problem. I mean, you always should deliver more on policy, but it's more of just a messaging problem here. Canceling medical debt. I think we should have a Medicare for all universal healthcare system, so medical debt shouldn't exist in the first place. It's like, if you're against slavery, you should be in favor of freeing the slaves when slavery is abolished. You know what I mean? I could make a whole video about Medicare for all, and maybe I will one day, but Medicare for all costs less than our current system, and everyone would be covered because you save on what's called administrative costs. This one was pretty cool. President Biden and Vice President Harris encouraged bipartisan cooperation to pass the first major gun safety law in nearly 30 years, which included record funding to higher sorry, during prime, and train over 14,000 mental health professionals for our schools. There was like a mass shooting every other week under the Trump presidency. I wish Biden and Harris would have flexed this more, because I mean, being in favor of saving lives from gun violence is immensely popular. I'm like generally pleased with what I saw on Kamala Harris's website. I think every general election since 2016, the Republican nominee has become more and more out of touch, while the Democratic nominee has become more and more in touch, right, with regular people. But yeah, I'm generally happy with where the Democratic Party is headed. It's not where it needs to be, but we're slowly getting there. Back in 2015, I was like, oh man, like I want Bernie to win. I want all of these policies to become a reality. And here we are almost 10 years later, and they're not a reality yet, but I mean, we're making progress. Like, these are things I've never seen on a general election candidate's platform. And with Tim Walz as vice president, it seemed like he was up next, you know, a Bernie-crat was up next. But maybe not. Well, maybe we can get a Bernie Sanders type Democrat, a Bernie-crat, as the next Democratic nominee in 2028. Maybe AOC, hopefully. Change takes time, on a personal level and on a political level. And what I'm learning is that in politics, change comes at a glacial speed. Things I don't like about Kamala Harris. Will she implement her policies? I don't know. Or sorry, I should change this. It says will she in my notes, but I should say, would she have implemented her policies? I don't know. I could never really tell what she was for. She was for progressive policies when she ran for the Democratic nomination in 2019, but then flipped back to corporatism. I'm pretty passionate about politics, but I had to find all those policies by digging deep on her website, and I don't know if the average voter did that. And I mean, clearly they didn't, actually, because she lost. That was her problem. It was her job to put it out there to everyone, but she didn't, because she kind of wanted to hide it, because she's kind of fake. It seems like she doesn't really want to stand for anything because she's afraid that it might alienate a certain group of people. For example, her donors. I'll get to that later. Another example of her being fake is there were people protesting for Palestine at her rally, and she said to them, if you want Donald Trump to win, just say that. And I hated when she said that. I was like, this is so bad. Like, it's a politician's job to earn votes. You should not be berating your voters. You should be thinking, okay, what can I change to win them over? And then immediately after that went viral, she flipped. She then said, oh, we have to earn everyone's votes. And she was super nice. And I think someone on her team just told her, they were like, yeah, you can't berate your voters. You have to say it. You have to try to earn their vote. And they were right, but I think that's an example of her being fake. Most of the videos I see of Kamala Harris are videos where she's just acting like a generic NPC Democrat, using all of those vague platitudes instead of actually hammering away on substantive policies, you know, actually standing for something. I found this page called Team Trump, and they post all of Kamala Harris's worst moments, and it's bad. Like, she's like a generic politician made in a lab, reciting all these focus group tested lines. Kyle Kalinske said it best. She's like a paid actress. I feel like Kamala Harris isn't talking about policy because she wants to be seen as this optical illusion of a bunny and a duck. She wants conservatives to see a conservative, she wants centrists to see a centrist, she wants moderates to see a moderate, and she wants progressives to see a progressive. Now you might say, she's trying to win a national election. She needs moderates, centrists, and conservatives too. Yes, I agree. I think it's fair and good strategy to want to be seen as a bunny to some people and a duck to other people. I think you should try to appeal to everyone, but I think the problem is when you do it by hiding your policies. Believe it or not, moderates, centrists, and conservatives need to afford groceries too. Moderates, centrists, and conservatives need to afford housing too. They need jobs too. Progressive policies appeal to them, and it's backed up by the polls. There's a lot of good stuff on Kamala's website, but I didn't see her talking about it. Instead, she just does the Pete Buttigieg fake deep stuff. Right? You know what I'm talking about. When she puts her thumb over her fist like this and does the soft punches while speaking like this and is like, we will never stop fighting to fulfill America's promise. When you don't talk about policy, it feels like you're hiding something. It feels like you don't stand for anything. It feels fake, and I don't trust her. So I don't know if she would have followed through on her promises, but I'm just going off of what she has on paper, and what she has on paper seems pretty good. Right before Election Day, I did see some of her closing ads, and they were really good and focused on economic policy. And so this criticism that I'm making is more focused on her and her appearances on TV and in debates and interviews and in speeches and at her rallies. Also, I don't like how she didn't win a primary. The DNC went from rigging their primaries in 2016, 2020, to now just straight up not having a primary, and from having primaries for show to just coronating a nominee. And look what happened. You didn't let the people find the strongest candidate. You didn't let the people find their favorite candidate. They didn't do that for the past 3 election cycles, right? The people had their favorite candidate, but the DNC was like, nope, you can't have him. Our donors don't like him, and we know what's best. We know what the people want. And look what the RNC did. They let their voters choose, and they chose Trump, and the establishment didn't like it, but the people liked him, so he won twice. Now, what I just listed were more stylistic and integrity criticisms. On policy, I don't like her criminal justice record, as I said earlier. If you want to know more, just Google Tulsi Gabbard's takedown of Kamala Harris at one of the 2020 Democratic debates. Kamala's healthcare policy was just to expand Obamacare, which is so 2000 and late. Medicare for all needs to be the party's position, and a progressive needs to win in 2028. For that to happen, you have to take the party from the establishment by force. You have to rip it away, like what Trump did and like what Bernie tried to do. I don't like how Kamala Harris abandoned all the progressive policies she was for in 2019, like Green New Deal and Medicare for all. It's just fake, and I can't trust her. And conservatives will fearmonger saying she's secretly progressive, and I wish, but I think she's a corporate Democrat, and she just said progressive things because she was running in a Democratic primary. Kamala Harris is corrupt. She has more billionaire donors than Trump. That's according to a Forbes article that I found when researching for this video. I didn't even know that before researching this video, and I have an inkling that that's why Bernie seems like he doesn't like Kamala. If you guys don't understand what I mean by this, the interests of the 1% and the interests of the 99% are inherently opposed to one another because the 1% takes money from the 99%. These two classes, the owners and the workers, cannot win at the same time. If one of these groups' lives gets better, the other ones will get worse. And that's just the definition of capitalism. There are two classes. If it was leveled out, it would be socialism, which I would prefer, but we're playing on this playing field right now. And so if these two groups are fundamentally opposed to one another, how can we trust Kamala's claims that she will help the 99% when she's funded by the top 1/10 of 1%? She has to obey them or they're gonna pull the plug on her. That's why I only trust politicians who are like Bernie and only take small dollar donations. Next up, perhaps the biggest reason why I don't like Kamala is the issue that affects me the most. She wants to ban TikTok. She's in favor of the bill that would ban TikTok. Since my phone is running out of storage, I think I'm gonna save this for the next video. I have a whole thing that, I'll just explain it in the next video. But that app means way too much to me, and I know it means too much to everyone else, and you are not gonna just ban that. Especially, like, you can't just go after one app. Maybe if you wanna regulate all companies and protect everyone's privacy across all apps, that makes sense, but to go after one company, especially when you're funded by Meta, Google, and Israel, that is just, I don't believe you on that. I don't believe you're actually looking out for us. Probably right next to that, as the thing that I dislike most about Kamala is her position on Palestine. And these last three that I'm mentioning are probably like equally the top 3 worst things about Kamala Harris. The more billionaire donors than Trump, the billionaire donors in general, the TikTok ban, and now her position on Gaza. She calls for a ceasefire on Gaza, but then wants to continue Biden's policy of arming and funding a genocide. And the way I see it is that is morally the worst thing a human can support, a genocide. That is morally the worst thing a human can do, a genocide. Now, it should be noted that Trump has worse plans for Gaza. He took $100 million in bribes from Miriam Adelson and wants to give Israel the West Bank now. The West Bank had nothing to do with October 7th, and he wants to let Netanyahu finish the job in Israel, and it's just so bad. But yeah, Donald Trump is worse on Israel, but that doesn't change the fact that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden have done something unacceptable, which is support a genocide, armed and funded a genocide, and that should be called out. And Donald Trump being worse does not make Joe Biden and Kamala Harris any better. Okay, two wrongs don't make a right. I just keep it honest, no matter who's doing it. Now, with all that being said and done, before anyone accuses me of making a false equivalency between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, I'm not. Let's put this into perspective. On a scale of 0 to 100, 0 being the worst president imaginable and 100 being the best president imaginable, 100 being my ideal president, I'd put Bernie Sanders at a 90, Kamala Harris at a 45, and Donald Trump at a 5. Now, who am I voting for? You'll have to wait until the next video.